Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Nightbreed Yearly Review Series. This originally just started out as a one-shot episode where I wanted to talk about my favorite horror movie, both a theatrical versus a director's cut, and it's now become an entirely yearly installment series. Last year I reviewed the epic comic series that was 25 issues that came out right after the film, and this time we're going to review the other comic series that came out of Nightbreed, which was from Boom Studios, and it went from about 2014 to 2015. And it was, I would say, if you look at the amount of issues, less successful, but it really was a different take on the Nightbreed mythos. So before I get into all of that, I did want to point out that this video is going to be a little different than my previous Nightbreed videos, as well as all of my previous videos that are reviewing different movies and whatnot, mainly because my camera broke at the beginning of 2026, but I still have this microphone. So even though we're putting our Year of the Dead on hold until we're able to get a new camera, we are able to continue doing this one review because I wanted to make sure we got it out and did not miss a year. So if you're one of the 5 people that hang on every word when it comes to Nightbreed on this channel, then, well, this one's for you because I'll try to go the extra mile. So again, since this is going to be entirely audio with just some pictures thrown in, it's going to be different. Please bear with me because I am not used to this format. Now, as stated before, we are going to be looking into the Boom Studios Nightbreed series that came out from 2014 to 2015. Before I look into that, though, I did want to touch upon 2 other pieces of literature that we have not looked at before. We've done the epic comic series as well as another book that came out around the same time that was just kind of a tie-in to Nightbreed. This time I wanted to look at the different limited edition booklets that came with some of the movie releases. So the first one was from 2014. It was the limited edition Shout Factory release, and this is the one that contained not only the director's cut, but also some of the other goodies that ended up making into the Cabal cut on a bonus disc, as well as the theatrical cut on Blu-ray. Now, the booklet that's included with this, it includes a writing called Nightbreed: The Storied Story. It has a foreword from Mark Allen Miller that is kind of like a backstory on Nightbreed and discussing how the director's cut came to be through tracking down leads on the lost footage, all the way up into when the original rough cut was screened at Horror Hound Convention in March of 2010. And what it sounds like is that reviews were kind of meh for this because it was, again, a rough cut. People were excited to see this footage, but it still kind of looked a little bad. Now, it was screened again at Mad Monster Party Convention in 2012 with something more of akin to what we know as the Cabal cut. Now, reviews here were much better. It also explains how the Occupy Midian movement began during this time, and in 2014, a deal was reached with Shout Factory, and after discovering more or less footage of the film, the director's cut would be released. Now, this booklet also includes a section with character photos and production stills. Since this was pretty much the first time we were getting a director's cut, I think this booklet was a very nice addition to the entire set, and I really actually appreciated some more of the background of how they came to be with putting together this lost film. Now, this had a very similar release from Arrow Video that had their own limited edition box set in 2019. This included very similar stuff from the director's cut that Shout Factory put out, but this was one that was more so focused on what was Arrow Video, so it was more focused on like the United Kingdom area. So with that in mind, the actual and I already went over in a previous video the different bonus features. But this booklet does include entirely different stuff. There is nothing similar in it to what was included with the Shout Factory. This included 2 separate little essays. One was called Nightbreed, Clive Barker's Love Letter to Outsiders. It was written by Amy Simmons, and it discusses how Nightbreed can function as almost an anti-movie. The monsters are the heroes, and the authority, religion, civilized world are seen as the villains. It discusses how it is an allegory for the others of society who go against the grain, and she particularly likens it to being gay. The other addition to this is The Monstrous and the Dead, looking back on Nightbreed. This is made by Mark Salisbury, and it goes into detail about the origins of the Cabal novel being written, especially because it was originally planned to be a trilogy. Also, the making of the film, the executives getting in the way of this film, and then eventually the resurrection of the director's cut. It is a great overview of Nightbreed. I think this one, out of all of these little essays, was probably my favorite. And it's mainly because it just gave us this great overview of everything, touching upon every little thing from someone who knew a lot about what was going on. This also includes production stills, which I believe some of them are the same as the Shout Factory one, but again, they're production stills, so there's a finite amount of them, so they only have so much they can put on. All in all, if I had to pick one, I would say the Arrow Video one was a little more superior. It has more to it, but at the same time, both are good. And I don't know how much you would want to seek out the limited edition of the Shout Factory because it is more expensive nowadays, and a lot of the goodies from that not from this booklet are now included on re-releases that included the 4K re-release. So I would say if you did have to track down one, the Arrow Video one would be the way to go. Now we can finally get to what I mainly want to talk about, which is the Boom Studios comic series from 2014 and 2015. This was 12 issues, and it's been released in 4 separate volumes that do a good job as having their own set story in each volume. I'm going to go over each volume along with each issue and going upon the main points of it. If there's anything very important or things that might carry over, be relevant later on, I'll mention it. And I really want to get in before I go over each issue is that I really enjoyed this series. I see how it could have been an actual good movie follow up. I do have some critiques that I will get into, but I think I enjoyed it more because I think there was less issues that just meandered and didn't do anything, as opposed to the Epic comics that had some issues that didn't go anywhere and then they rushed to the ending. I actually, oddly enough, think they rushed through the ending on this one as well, but I do think every issue had their own purpose. So, without further ado, let's get into Volume 1, which was issues 1 through 4. Issue 1 begins in 1857 in Louisiana. Peliquin is turning a runaway slave into a Nightbreed. And there's also another story in Boston in 1945, which is when Suna Sassy is working in a brothel and is visited by a senator. Issue 2 follows Pelican as he attacks the slavers and attempts to save the lover of the new Nightbreed that he just made, but is pushed back and eventually saved by Lylesburg. Following the Suna Sassy storyline, the senator becomes irate that Suna would sleep with someone else and tries to kill her, so she defends herself and kills him in the process, only to be exiled and attempts to commit suicide, only to be saved by Lylesburg as well. Now, all of this is framed around Lylesburg telling Boone about different parts of Nightbreed history. So I'm going to stop here before we go to 3 and 4. This entire volume kind of goes over different Nightbreed that we are familiar with from the movie, whether or not they're main characters or background characters. It's framed as when Boone first turned, this is what Lylesburg is telling him about. Now, I like this idea. I don't think that's how they should have started the series. I think the series should have started continuing on from the Nightbreed movie and keeping just a momentum going instead of going back to set some stuff up that ultimately isn't 100% needed besides just giving some backstory. Now, with that said, I think these stories are good. I wish it was, if the series is more popular, these could have been like their own little spin-off series where it's kind of like gives many origins to all the Nightbreed. Ideally, that's what I would have liked more, but it's still very good and adds a lot to the Nightbreed's mythos that I can't say anything bad about it. I just wish it wasn't what they started with, or if it was more of a spin-off type of thing. Now, going into issue 3, it takes place in 1478 in Italy. An unnamed breed that is serpent-like is chased to a cave where their eggs hatch and birth human-looking babies. Also in 1968, San Francisco, it recounts a young Ashbury being tempted by a young woman who he then kills because she is a sinner. So this is followed by learning that the unnamed breed in the previous issue, this is issue 4, is revealed to be Chocolat, as she gets one of her babies taken away to the Vatican. And she survived through the centuries with her children until she is eventually rescued by Basti Moses in a traveling freak show. Ashbury, meanwhile, grows older and kills sinners through the decades before leading to the event of Nightbreed. I'm a little hesitant about this depiction of Ashbury being someone who has been killing people because of their sins. Because after watching the movie again, particularly the director's cut a couple weeks ago, I'm not too sure really he feels like someone who's been committing all these murders in the name of God. He literally just seems like a drunk, a priest that fell from great heights. Now, that's just my personal opinion. Ashbury's also been probably my most questionable character that I've had over the years because I've grown to like him more, but I also find him very underwritten in most types of media. Now moving on to volume 2. This is issues 5 through 8. So issue 5 is in 1926 Hollywood, and Anastasia was a famous actress who became scarred in a bar fight and then went on to find a bad doctor that used breed DNA to treat her, and she grows a second head. So because of that breed DNA treating her, that's how she became a breed. So the beginning of the story, she was not Nightbreed. Also in this issue in 1642, the Black Forest, Lude was born from the embodiment of sin impregnating his mom, who then abandoned him. Issue 6 continues with the storyline where Anastasia gets revenge by killing the man who scarred her and the doctor before finding the traveling freak show breed which Chocolate and Basti Moses were in, only in 1956 to be wrongly targeted by the humans and driven off. Meanwhile, Lude grows older and tracks down his mom, who abandoned him, who has since become a mute nun. Now, he originally wanted to probably harm her, but once she finds out this and how she feels sorry for what she did, he actually stays with her, and they form a pretty loving relationship of mother and son until her death. Issue 7 follows Lylesburg as he helps Boone relive his past trauma, where we learn that beginning in 1968 in Toronto, his mom was raped and then gave birth to him, only to have the guy who raped her get out of jail and strangle her to death, leading to Boone killing him. This also includes a wraparound segment in London, 1952, involving Clay and Otis being tracked down by a reporter. Issue 8 concludes where, after Boone's mother dies, he lives with a surly grandma before she dies and he enters foster care, where he dealt with beatings, neglect, and abuse that led him to an insane asylum and eventually meeting Lori, who gives him Decker's number to help him with his dreams and trauma. Meanwhile, Clay and Otis explain their writing career as an author and a critic to the reporter before drugging him and putting him with the corpse of their mom and dad. This also ends with Lori entering Midian. So that then coincides where Boone no longer is hearing about the breed and we're back into the movie. I know I mentioned before that everything kind of had a purpose, and I will say the Clay and Otis thing does have a purpose, however small. Um, but it is actually kind of interesting, their little backstory. I like how one of them is the author and the other one's a critic of the author. So they put out reviews critiquing the author's book, and they're very scathing reviews. So I do like that concept. And again, I like this whole concept in general with these Nightbreed backstories. We're going to be going away from that now in the next 2 volumes, but it's still something different, and I do appreciate it. So before we go into volume 3, issues 9 through 12, I actually did have an error that I will correct now. It is not 4 volumes, it's only 3 volumes. I think I said that a few times throughout this video, but I am not going to re-record this. So just know I'll put up a correction every time it says I say 4, but it is only 3 because we're going into the final volume, issues 9 through 12. And this pretty much is the continuation of the Nightbreed movie. We're done with the backstories. So this goes off the director's cut ending, where Boone is now living his best life with Lori, who is now a Nightbreed who can see people's insides. I know that sounds strange. And it is. Now, Ashbury is alive after everything that happened in the movie and is tracking them down, where he possesses Lori to then attack Boone. It is then revealed that Ashbury has Decker's severed head was in the mask, and the breed are also in hiding. We also find out that Otis and Clay wrote a novel about the events, and they called it Nightbreed, and has become a bestseller, and I think they're trying to make a movie out of it. They're also, meanwhile, the Nightbreed are trying to find a new home. So during this time, we see Otis and Clay, Pelican, Kinski, Rachel, Bobette, and Chuna Sassy, all along with some other unnamed breed in the background, all trying to find this new home, waiting for Cabal to come back. Issue 10 involves Ashbury leading the Berserkers to find Boone, who then disembowel Boone in the streets as the remaining Nightbreed make plans to move into their new home. Now, during this time, before they can make the move, they sense that Cabal's in danger. Ashbury also confronts Laurie wearing Decker's mask. Issue 11 involves Leroy Gum, Pelican, and 2 other Nightbreed that were in the movie, but I don't believe they have names, showing up to save Boone after he gets patched up, and then they kill the Berserkers. Ashbury almost gets the upper hand on Laurie, but is ran over by the breed coming to save Boone. Boone can't make the escape, though, once the police arrive because of his wounds. So issue 12 then follows that up with Boone waking up in a cocoon from a spider worm-like breed that I don't believe was seen in the movie. And he finds that everyone is living happily in their new home, and Boone is being a father. Ashbury shows up with a bomb at this new home, but is then dispatched by Boone, and it's revealed that Baphomet's reborn through Ashbury. So his body now becomes a new continent for Baphomet, who is, like, just kind of a statue at this point. And Ashbury is now forced to watch the breed for all eternity from being the vessel of Baphomet, because he can't do anything. He can just see. Now, just for some final thoughts, I do think this ending was a little rushed. Not as rushed as it was in the last series, but I can tell they probably wanted to do more. They realized they couldn't. I think they summed up their story a lot better in this final issue than in the Epic Comics series. With that said, I did enjoy it. I kind of see how this could have been the next step after Nightbreed for a potential Nightbreed 2. Just probably more to it, because this does feel like it ended a little early. Now, as I said before, my main concern is that I wish it would have started with a continuation and had a spinoff for like the random backstories, or even every issue having like the little bit of each backstory at the end of it. That would have been a nice addition. Um, Also, I think it lacks introductions of original, newly created Nightbreed, because there was a lot of new Nightbreed in the old Epic series that I was a big fan of. That were some really cool ideas. I think there could have been great ideas, but they leaned very heavily on what we're already familiar with. I also think the scale might have been a little too small, and like I said, it doesn't really give the story time to breathe. But again, I think it's because this is getting canceled. So Nightbreed has the fans to get these comic series started, but not the fans to keep them going, which is unfortunate, because there's definitely something there with Nightbreed. There's an amazing world that honestly feels almost untapped. But I don't know if there'll be another Nightbreed comic series. We've already had 2 that were semi-successful. Unless the movie gets remade or gets a sequel, I don't see comics coming in the future. So as kind of a conclusion to this video, I think that there are more things I can make Nightbreed reviews on. There's a book that I have not read yet, but kind of is the most definitive look in written form of Nightbreed. Along with that, there are some video games which I do not have the consoles for or the ability to play, but I would be willing to watch some playthroughs online if they exist and giving reviews of that. Besides that, it actually was a lot of fun reading this comic series. It was a lot easier read than the Epic comic series, and I do appreciate that it's out, and it's also pretty easy to find. I'm able to go online and find all the volumes for pretty cheap. It was a lot cheaper than the Epic comic series for sure. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video looking through some of the comic series of Nightbreed. I'll be back next year, and who knows what I'll tackle, but as long as you guys are interested and we get at least a few views, we'll keep on doing these. As for the future of the channel, we did want to continue making another season 2 of Year of the Dead, but because of the camera issue, we had to put that on hold. Just know that that is in the works, and we honestly don't plan on stopping that anytime soon. So, otherwise, I just want to let you guys know that thank you again for watching or listening, since there is not much to watch. I do appreciate any views, comments that you guys put. I always read them all. And, well, until next year.